Hello guys and welcome back. Today we're going to learn about if statements. So what is an if statement? Well, in C you can do things such as conditions. So I can say if variable a is equal to 5, then do this particular action. Else, if it isn't equal to 5, do something else. So I'm going to explain all of that today. So what I want you to do is I want you to go integer a equals 50. So we create a variable of an integer type and we set its value to 50. Now I want you to go if a equals 50. Make sure you do equals because equals is assignment. Equals is comparison. So if a is equal to 50, then printf a is equal to 50. Okay, so that is an if statement. So now if we now compile our program by copying the path, go into command prompt like before, cd, right click, enter, and we do gcc main.c -o main, and then we run main, you can see a is equal to 50. Now change this value to 49 or 40 or whatever, as long as it's not 50, right? And now I now want you to compile that again and press type main again, and you see nothing outputted, because what happens is it goes in here and it says is a equal to 50. No, it isn't equal to 50. Do nothing. That's what happens. But now let's try this. Else if a equals 40 equals 40. So then if we printf a is equal to 40, so what will happen here is it'll say is a equal to 50? No, it isn't. Okay, then is a equal to 40? Yes, it is. Run this code. So if we now compile that and we do main, you can see a is equal to 40. Now if you now do else if a is equal to 30, and you do printf a is equal to 30, then if a is equal to 30, that'll be run. But if a is equal to none of these, then nothing will happen. So if we do 35 in here and we compile that, nothing happens. But now you can do an else. So what this does, if a is equal to 50, output a is equal to 50. If a is equal to 40, output a is equal to 40. If a is equal to 30, output a is equal to 30. If it's equal to none of these, then run the code in here, which will be printf none of the above. So now if you now compile that and do main, none of the above is shown. So that is if statements, and you can have an else with only one if, just like this. So we can say if a is equal to 50, print that, else print that. So now if we compile that, none of the above is shown. But if we set a to 50 and we compile that, a is equal to 50. So that is if statements for you in the C programming language. Very handy and necessary feature. Now, I want to make the distinction between expressions and statements. So what I want you to do, I want you to go integer b equals a equals 50. Now, what happens here then? Well, when we set variable b, we say is a equal to 50? If it is, this is replaced with 1. Otherwise, it's replaced with 0. And this is done at runtime, by the way. So if we now go printf I to print an integer and we pass in b, we now run that with gcc and we do main, you see 1 outputted. Now change a to 30 and run that again, and you see 0. So I want to make that distinction because this if statements are an if keyword and an expression. So this here that I've highlighted is not an if statement. it isn't. And I want to make that very clear. So what we do here is integer b equals a equals 50. B becomes 1 if a is equal to 50, or it becomes 0 if it isn't. So that was an important distinction to make. Now, watch this. Integer b equals 1. And now if you do if b, and we go in here, printf, b is true. Okay? Now if you compile that, you can see b is true. Now if b is equal to 0, and you compile that, nothing is shown. So essentially, the if statement, if the value you pass here ends up equivalating to true, which is above 0, then b is true. If you put 50 here and try that, compile that, b is true. So if it's non-zero, b is true. If you put in 0 in here, compile that, nothing's shown. So the if statement says if this expression equivalents to true, which is anything above 0, then b is true. So I hope that sums up the expressions there. Now, there are special things you can do to sort of flip true to false and false to true. So how does that work then? Well, if you say b equals 1, and in here you do exclamation mark b, and I want you to run that, you can see nothing's displayed. But if you now change b to 0, and you compile that and run that, b is true. So this operator here flips it from true to false, or from false to true. That's what that operator does. And again, it can be used here. If you set a to 1, and we're going to print out b again. 1 second. And you now go exclamation mark a, b equals exclamation mark a. If you compile that now, you can see b is 0. But now if you set a to 0, you can now see b is 1. So how does this work? Well, because a is 0, we use this special operator here, which flips 0 to 1, which is true. So I hope that explains if statements. Please do go back through the lecture slowly and listen again if you didn't quite understand, or send me a message about that.